started here shortly. Do see people are still joining and connecting to audio, but thank you for joining us. For those of you who want or like to have closed captionings, it is enabled. Please do select that at the bottom of your screen. Within Zoom, you should see the little CC logo with show captions, and that will enable the captioning for you. Excellent. We are just waiting, I think now for the slideshow to load. It's like Meredith is trying to get that up for us. So bear with us while we make sure that comes up and we'll get started. Thank you again for joining us. If you just logged in, note that closed captionings are enabled. For you to see them, you will need to select that on your screen. It's a little button. I believe it's the fourth one in on the bottom that says show captions. And we do have chats enabled as well, I believe. And if you have questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat. We do have some of our team monitoring those chats, and we'll get to those questions as soon as we're able. See a couple more people joining and connecting to Otto. When you joined, you have been muted. Please, just to make it so that audio comes through clearly, as you may have noted, we are recording, to please keep yourself muted. We do appreciate that. All right. I believe that we are good to go. Meredith, if I could get a thumbs up from you, that all right. So you will see that to what I'm seeing is the agenda for our presentation today. And Meredith, I am seeing, yeah, there we go. Okay. That slideshow is loading for us. Thank you for joining us today. We are, oh, and it went away. We are having a bit of technical issues, so thank you for bearing with us. But today you are joining us. We're part of the Minnesota Connect Network, and we are facilitating a conversation on successful transition into adulthood using Charting the Life course. And you're going to be with us for about an hour today. And I'm here to just welcome you and give you a little bit of background, a little bit of an overview about Charting the Life course. And then we're going to have some information sharing tools to help with the conversation, futures conversations. We're going to dig in a little bit. We're going to use those tools to discuss a young person's goals. And then we're actually going to practice, and we're going to do a collaborative activity, and you get to choose. We're going to give you a poll, so you get to choose how you want to, what perspective you want to use the integrated support star. And then Meredith will give us some announcements, and we hope that you'll share your experience, and we'll close approximately 1 o'clock. So again, thank you for joining us. And it looks like we are ready to go. This is, you're seeing here, gosh, how many? There's well over a dozen of us that are in the Minnesota Connect leadership team for this 22-23 year. And we come from all over, state and community collaborators with an aim really to help all Minnesota children and young people with disabilities and extra needs achieve their best life. So Minnesota Department of Education, myself at the Hub, the ARC, St. Paul Schools, SEMSIL, Minnesota Department of Health, DEED, Voc Rehab, LifeWorks, ISD 206, Star Services, and many others. I don't want to get everybody in there, but please take a minute to look that over. We appreciate each and every one of our members and all that they've contributed and all the great work and hard work that they've put in. And we hope that our team will continue to be able to work together and bring you more informational sessions like this as we work through charting the life course together as an entire state collaborating. And speaking of those speakers today, myself, I am one of them. I happen to be a community capacity builder with the Disability Hub, and we have Leanne Bieber with us, and she is a person-centered thinking specialist at Olmsted County, and also a mom to a young person supported with services who graduated just a couple of years ago now. And Nora Alseth is an individual advocacy manager at the ARC Minnesota. Jen Billington is a person-centered service director at Star Services. Heather Schutte is a strategic initiatives lead at SEMSA Living in Rochester. And Ellen Anderson is a work experience coordinator at Transition Center in Alexandria Public Schools. And Meredith Fox is supporting us today as the CEO of Portage Partners Consulting, provides facilitation and coordination of support to the Minnesota Connect Leadership Group this year. And we appreciate each and every one of them in coming together. So charting the life course, a very brief overview of charting the life course, because charting the life course is actually so much, but the core belief is that charting the life course provides all people with efforts in their efforts, or supports all people in their efforts to have that innate right to live, love, work, play, and pursue their life aspirations in their community. And we're so happy to support that core belief today. All right, so what is charting the life course? There is a very striking visual representation on here that charting the life course includes technology, person-centered strengths, etc., relationship-based, eligibility-specific, community-based, and all of these things come together to reflect on the individual within the context of their family and their community and all of their life experiences. And it was created for people and families really of all abilities, disability or not, but all abilities, to explore these life possibilities, to share ideas, hopes, and fears that they have, really to set some higher expectations for themselves and their community, navigate all the ins and outs of the future that they envision, and advocate not only as an individual, but as a family and as a community for whatever they set their vision to be, and problem solve along that journey, and plan for expected barriers, unexpected barriers, plan for all the good things and the difficult things that can happen along that trajectory and along that vision. And in doing all those great, wonderful things that maybe seem overwhelming at times, Charting the Life course has provided us with some easy to use, again, visually striking, in my opinion, tools, including, you see some pictures on here on the left, you see what looks like a star, and in the middle is a one-page trajectory, or one-page profile, excuse me. And to guide us in using those tools, they've even provided us with life stage guides or life domain guides from the life stages of early childhood all the way through aging adults. And life domain guides include things like everyday life, work and employment, school, etc. And we're going to talk a little bit more about all of this as we go forward. And I think next, we're going to hear from Nora.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nora Alseth, and I am the Individual Advocacy Manager from the ARC Minnesota. And I'm going to be going through the tools that Marcy brought up, just a few of them, to kind of more share the information on how you could possibly use these tools, and also just show the wide range of things that Charting Life course offers to facilitate conversation, exploration in the transition stage. So I'm really coming from this, I would say, from my own experience. I did person-centered planning, and then I also support people in coaching and taking calls at the ARC Minnesota. And so a lot of my job is utilizing these tools and supporting people in understanding how they can use them themselves in the situation that they're in. And so I'm kind of using some of the questions that I use with people to go through that with you today. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the trajectory tool that you will find on the website. And the trajectory tool is really kind of having someone describe what is a good life and what is a life that they don't want, and figuring out how to move towards that life that they want and avoid the things that would get them to life that they don't want. And I think sometimes that can be really difficult for a young person. I don't know about you, but for me, when I was a young person, I didn't really know what I wanted. I had some ideas. So I think a lot of times um, these tools can be a great way to start kind of digging, to start seeing how things might play out, and really just explore the options. And so one thing that I really like to ask people, some questions are, who do you look up to? Who do you admire? What are you curious about? What makes you afraid or anxious? What are you excited about? What are you unsure about? What is something you've never tried but you want to? What do you like about your life? What do you want to continue? And what do you want to change? And I think I'm just stating some different questions because depending on the person, certain questions are going to be able to facilitate a conversation on what they want their future to look like and what they don't want it to look like. And some won't click, right? And some won't be able to facilitate that conversation. So with some people that I've supported who didn't use words to communicate it, we created vision boards using the trajectory. And so I brought over a bunch of magazines and we used the images, things that they looked up to, who they admired, and really kind of use those different things that they were drawn to start kind of understanding more about what they want and what they didn't want. I think the other thing that I put as a note for here is I think that with the trajectory, really having just this out on your refrigerator and starting the conversation. I think it's really just that inspiration, like, oh yeah, we're talking about this life now. It's not like everything is going to be figured out. We're starting to talk about adulthood and having things even, just on the refrigerator. As so say if you're driving and you ask a question about like, oh yeah, what do you think about what you want to do for work, or how you want to spend your day, or who do you want to be friends with? It's kind of just building these conversations and making sure that there's kind of that intentional time being built in. Next. So this is the other tool I wanted to show how they have in the on the website. You'll notice that they have kind of more of a general, the tool where you're just kind of looking at what they want and what they don't want. This one I think is really nice because it's a little bit more reflective on what has been the past experiences to bring someone to where they are today and then moving onward. I think this is especially helpful for transition because a lot of times when I'm talking to parents or young adults, we talk about what has been successful in school or in those like school age years and what hasn't been. And as you're moving onwards to this new stage of life, what are areas or what are things that you might want to continue? And what are things that maybe were not helpful about school and those that was the time of life that you could put in, as we're moving in this new stage of life, we actually want to avoid that. And so I think for this specific tool can be really helpful to think about, again, what needs to continue specifically around school and what school provided. Next. Okay, now we're going on to the life domains. And so charting the life course has broken things into 6 different domains. And they go from daily life and employment, so school, education, volunteering, routines and life skills, community living, so housing options, things that you might need to modify, community access, transportation, social and spirituality, so friendships and relationships and faith communities, if that's what someone is involved in, healthy living, so obviously medical, nutrition, wellness, safety and security, and then advocacy and engagement. So all of those things, oh, and you can go to next. So the life domains, one thing that's really great about this tool is it kind of can help you pinpoint specifically what this area looks like for you, but also can look at how they interact. Everything is related, everything is interconnected. And so all these life domains kind of play off and bounce off one another. And especially as you're planning for, you know, adulthood and kind of looking at how those pieces, especially for school, how have they fit together for school, and then moving onwards when maybe there isn't that full-time program, how are all these pieces going to fit together? Next. So this is a picture. I took a lot of pictures of the tools. I'm a visual learner, and so I took all the pictures of different tools just so that for myself to remember, but just so that people can kind of see what I'm talking about, and how I talk to people through these tools. So typically when I show someone the life domain, a lot of times I'll talk about it when you're looking at what is it like now in school, and then what possibly does the person want in the future, for say daily life and employment or community living or healthy living and safety security. It can be really helpful to kind of think about who is in those specific roles, what services are being provided, what is that looking like now, and linking it to the trajectory that you possibly did when it's more of like this big picture, imagining and dreaming big. And so I think that kind of breaking it down into these maybe more detail oriented different domains can be really helpful. You'll notice on the far right side, it has priority. And I think that this is a really helpful things for when I go through this tool with people, because a lot of times with transition, you might have heard people use the transition cliff, that phrase being used. And so I think a lot of times when I'm talking to people, we're talking about what's crucial and what is a priority right now, especially if it's getting maybe to that point where graduation is coming up, or a certain meeting is coming up, an annual meeting maybe. You're speaking to a case manager and you're really needing to figure out where someone's going to live, or what are they going to do during the day. I think that's a really big one that I talk to most people about, especially because if you think about a student being possibly in school for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, that's, how are you piecing together all those different things that they were getting in schools, and then what are they going to do during the day? So kind of being able to prioritize, okay, right now, what they're doing for the day is the most important thing. They're going to live with us for a while and we're going to explore housing in a little bit. So maybe that's lower priority. Maybe they were getting, nursing supports in school. So healthy living, and making sure that those things are provided during the day is another priority level. So it's a really nice way to go through and just kind of think about what right now do we need to focus on, and what can we maybe put on the back burner to give us some space, just because you're not going to have the answers for everything. Not everything needs to be figured out now. I know that when I was 18, that's definitely not. I think for most people, it's one thing at a time. And so just kind of figuring out what is priority. All right, let's go to the next one. I can actually slow down because I'm talking fast. Okay, so these Trying to Life course, Marcia mentioned, has these incredible toolkits to help you use the tools that I mentioned before. So the life trajectory and the domains. They have created this life stage kind of toolkit that can prompt some questions for you to kind of think through things and maybe consider some things that you might not have. And I would say they're not it's not an exhaustive list. Hopefully they are sparking more questions and more discussion. And maybe it's not maybe they're not asking the right questions for you, but that gap is bringing up things that you need to figure out in your situation. So we can go to the next slide. So this is For each section, you're going to notice, and I'll say on their website, if you click down to the tools, they're going to be in life stages. And so they have one for each stage of life, like Marcy had mentioned. And so this one is transition to adulthood. They have, who is helping me create a transition plan that is truly individualized and prepares me for a life after school ends? How does my transition plan include work or volunteer experience, as well as practicing how to look for, get, and keep a job? What kind of job do I think I would like to try? What do I like to do or want to learn more about? What supports will I need for either work or other daytime activities, and who will provide these supports? I'm not going to go through each one and read all the questions, but I just wanted to share that, they give these different prompts. And one thing that I typically talk to people about is these toolkits can be super helpful to bring to an IEP meeting, to a meeting with your team, with someone's case manager, with your family, because I think a lot of times the life stage toolkits are asking the question, who and how? And a lot of times, especially if you think about, a school team, there's a lot of different players involved, or and kind of figuring out, okay, in adulthood, who might those people be? Who are they now, and who might they be in the future? And how are they going to support me? So, like I said, these are not going to be these are not all the questions that people have, right? I typically, when I'm talking to people through these different questions, there's many more that people have. And I think my hope is that it's really just kind of digging in. And there might be some questions that then you're like, oh, this is another question I have. Who can I go? How can I find this answer? Who do I need to talk to? Is it someone from school? Is it calling one of the trusted organizations that I'm connected to? Disability Hub, the ARC Minnesota, PACER, things like that. So just trying to find the answers. I think these questions can kind of bring about, oh yeah, we haven't really talked about that, or we haven't really planned for that. No one's brought that up. And so what these guides are really trying to do is hopefully prepare people so it's not that transition cliff. It's not just this fall off point where people are not set up with a team. We can go to the next one. So you'll notice that, and I'm just gonna kind of show, I'm not gonna read everything, but for each of the domains, they have a guide of questions. So we notice that we have for community living, they have things around where you're going to live, and thinking about what do you want? What does my child want? Whatever your capacity is, whatever role you are supporting someone, really digging into what does that future look like for them. And so that's why these questions they can be paired so well with that trajectory in the domains, just because it gives you more to kind of dig into. Next. So again, there's social and spirituality. There's another list of questions. Next. Healthy living. Another great list of questions to prompt and keep digging. Next. Safety and security, things like that. And so again, it will just bring up more questions and things to look into. You do not need to know all the answers. That is okay. You don't need to know the answers now or later. You can take time and find people to support you in that. Next. Services and supports. So I think this is another really great one. Just how are people making sure that they have the services and supports, especially if they were receiving those during school? Are those things continuing, or how are they relevant in their adulthood? Next. And then this is thinking about the family, making sure that everyone is because people are in the context of their family, and so making sure that everyone is successful in this new stage of life. Next. Okay, so I really wanted to bring up this another tool, tools for exploring decision-making supports. So under domains on their website, you will find they have one for COVID-19, transitioning from foster care, respite. One of them that you'll see is the tools for exploring decision-making supports. I use this tool so much when I'm talking to people, because I think a lot of adulthood is about making decisions and moving someone into making decisions for themselves, or or I should say, having the people to support them. We all have people to help us make decisions. I would never, honestly, for myself, I would never buy a car without talking to my parents, or most things I would never do without talking to my parents, just because they are huge supports in my life. And so I feel like it's a really big part of adulthood. And so that's why I typically bring up this tool. And I think it's a really nice tool to kind of gauge where someone is at. So it says, I can decide with no extra support, I need support with my decision, or I need someone to decide for me. So it kind of helps you figure out, okay, where is this person at with their decision-making skills? And maybe then the next conversation is, what types of supports are needed? What things need to be put in place to make sure that they're successful? What are skills that need to be developed to make sure that someone is being successful in their adulthood? We can kind of scroll through the slides, because I forgot, actually, I'm so sorry. My computer's 2 minutes late, so I think I'm over my time. So you'll see there's pictures. They have the different domains, again, kind of prompting you with questions to gauge where someone is at, what supports might be needed, and help then kind of prompt more conversations to get someone set up for success. Okay, I'm going to go really quickly on this. I'm so sorry, I'm a little bit over. Last is mapping relationships tool. And I think this is a good segue for what we're going to be talking about next with the integrated support star. This is a really great tool because it's looking at who serves in specific roles currently, who might serve in that role in the future, and then also planning for next steps to make that happen. So there's two categories: caring about someone and caring for. And so you're kind of thinking about, like, especially the friendship site you have in school, or the people who provide, health needs or personal supports during the day, making sure that you have activities that you're linked to. So it kind of helps you map out who's in my life right now. Is that person connected to school? Do I have access to them anymore when I'm an adult? Do I need something? What do I need in the future? So I think this is a really great way to think about who, and then also how, and what will the future of my relationships look like in adulthood. So I think that's all for me. We're going into the integrated support star, which is great because we're looking at social goals. Thank you.
And while we're transitioning, I just want to mention for folks information. If you look in the chat, there is a PDF to the slides that we're using today. And then there's also links to these tools that Nora just went through on the Charting the Life course website.
Thanks, Meredith, and thanks, Nora, for the overview that of some of the tools that Charting the Life course has to offer. So as Nora mentioned, we're going to take a closer look at the integrated star, and we will be focusing specifically on social life and community connections once a person has graduated or finished their transition program. And I know this is really hard to see on your screen right now, so we're going to go through each section and talk through each section. So the first section that I typically work with teams or a person on completing are the person's strengths and assets. And with each person, that's going to be different. We all are different people, so we all have different places that we excel and maybe places that we don't excel so much in. So when working with this tool, I start with the assets and strengths because it really starts that conversation on a positive note. And it's about what the person sees as their strengths. And if I'm working with a team, I encourage the entire team for each person to share at least one thing that they like and admire about the person. And then I usually move on to what the person wants to increase in their strengths or their toolkit. So if you look at this example, right now, they are social, they're funny, they're outgoing, they're athletic. And in the future, what they're hoping to build some more skills in is budgeting and time management. Right now, maybe in school, or with their family, they don't necessarily have to be on top of when it's time to have dinner, or it's time to go to work, or things like that. So building on those skills, and maybe the family kind of take care of all the bills that they have. And so managing how to pay for what I want versus what I need might not be a skill set that they have yet. The next section that I typically walk through with people is the relationships that they have in their lives. So who is the person close to now? What connections do they have on that personal level? So this is typically very specific. In our example, it just lists family, but it would say maybe mom, dad, stepmom, stepdad, siblings by name, extended family, so aunts, uncles, cousins, grandmother, grandfathers, whoever might be in the person's life. And then moving on to the future, I usually encourage people to think long-term. So what relationships would they like to build? This might be more generic when you're kind of looking at that future, because they won't know specifically, oh, I want to be friends with Joe, my coworker, because they don't have Joe as a coworker yet. So it might be that mentor or coworkers without those specific names, but it's thinking kind of as a global thought, who might you want to build those relationships with? Next, Meredith. And the next one that I look at is technology. And this is a huge category. It can be things from social media to communication devices to automatic door openers or a Ring doorbell, things like that. It could be GPS. Some people are really great at that. And some people, like myself, always think I know more than the GPS does. And then I get lost. We again start with, what does the person currently have in their life? They don't have to be perfect at using or accessing any of these things, but what do they have in their life presently? So looking at this example of transitioning from school, right now, they have a school laptop. They have a phone. Maybe they use Twitter and Snapchat, or as I said before, communication device. What they might need in the future are ways to connect to those things. So maybe they need to go to coffee shops or the library so they can use the internet. Maybe they have to start putting their schedule on their phone because they don't have that built-in routine of school of, my class ends at 8:15, my next one starts at this time, things like that. So what kind of apps and calendars and emails can they have? And I know when Ellen and Heather and I were creating this, we also were thinking that oftentimes people forget their passwords for their email, so they just start a new one. Well, if you're using that on your applications or in your resume and you have the wrong email address, might not work out because you might miss that opportunity for an interview or a job offer, things like that. So helping our students and the people that we're supporting understand the need to track those things. I usually share when I'm planning with somebody is I have a spreadsheet that has all of my passwords. So if anybody ever steals my computer, I'm really in trouble because they can access everything, but I know where to go to when I can't find that password. Next, Meredith. And then with teams, I will go through community-based places and activities that anyone can be part of. Doesn't need to be disability specific. And it's really based on what the person wants and needs in their life. So right now, the person really has access and connections through school. So they can do tons of different events and clubs through school. So what do these activities or events say about the person? What do they love? What do they want to remain connected to? And how can we build on those things? So let's say they're part of theater in school, how can they remain connected to that once they're finished with school? Are there community theaters that they can belong to? Are there volunteer organizations that they can connect to? And can they build those relationships from the second category we talked about through those connections in the community? Next. So the last section that I look at or talk with people and their teams is the eligibility services and supports. So again, very much like the community section, this doesn't have to be disability specific. Doesn't have to be whether you have a waiver or you are eligible for MA or things like this. This could be benefits from your employer or other organizations they belong to. Could be related to insurance coverage. Are they eligible for discounts at local gyms through their insurance? Can they open a checking or a savings account through an affiliation through their volunteer group or their employment or their families and friends? Are they connected somehow with those? So it's building on what people currently have in their lives and looking at the future of what they might want to have and how they can use what they have now to build those futures. So this was really a very brief overview to kind of give you a base of hopefully where we will be heading with our next actual working through the tools.
Okay, I think next we're going to talk about the polls. We want to have your voice on what area we could look at to look at the supported integrated support star. So there's the poll. Go ahead and choose which one you would like to look at: daily life and employment, healthy living, advocacy and engagement, supported decision-making, or safety and security. And then we will walk through an integrated support star for whichever one you choose. Okay. I don't know, Meredith, I think are you able to see the poll? I'm not sure who sees the poll to see where we're at, if we've got a percentage.
Yep, let's last chance. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna close the poll. Okay,
Jamie said she did not see the poll. That's somebody else too. Jamie, you can just give us an answer too if you want to do that.
Can you see that?
I definitely see the topics, and so far we have 46% at daily life and employment. And then after that was advocacy and engagement and supported decision-making, healthy living. So it looks like we're looking at daily life and employment. Is everybody, if that makes sense, we will look at that for sure. And Nora is going to record what we talk about, and I will try to walk you through where we go with that. So as Jen walked through, we're going to go that same direction. We always start with the personal strengths and assets for an individual. When you think about daily life supports and employment, what are some things that might be a strength for someone? I'm going to give you an example. So maybe it's that somebody has had work or volunteer experience. That would be a great strength in daily life and looking at employment. And please use the chat, or do we want them to enjoying people we had? Another is great attendance and punctuality. That's a very good one. So the experiences that people have had within what they're doing. Staying on task. So having the strength to stay on task and to be detailed. Do we have any others? Even if somebody can follow verbal directions and if somebody is reliable, kind of going along with that punctuality and attendance, as well as reliable on the job itself or in daily life. Again, remember, this is daily life as well.
I hope it's okay. I'm gonna add, I always think motivated and is a really key to that daily life.
Absolutely. Yes, motivated. And Jen says empathetic. Jen, did you have two? I thought I saw a different one. Looked away. And caring, yes. Caring and empathetic. Some others that I'm looking at, communication is a big one. If somebody can communicate their ideas and their needs and their thoughts, that's a great strength or asset that would help someone. Anybody have anything else on that? Dressed correctly for the situation. So understanding what makes sense for the situation. Oh, Nora, you're so quick. How about thinking of this one, practicing everyday living skills, being able to do everyday living skills, and kind of knowing what you need. That would be a good strength, right? Because we do have some people that just, they just may not see the need for that.
Sorry, Leanne, can you say that one more time so I can type that?
Yes, practicing everyday living skills. Being daily living in, let's see, being task oriented. I think I missed one above that. Yeah, daily life. And I was just going to say that too. The focus is daily life and employment. So just knowing that both of those are in there. I think you had task oriented, transportation, your kitchen. There we go. You're caught up there. Competent within a routine. And the social and people skills. I think one other one that I had thought of would be that knowledge of variety of different jobs and careers. So having the experience to what is out there, what you might be interested in, that would definitely be a strength to looking at employment. Seeking assistance when stuck, that is a big one. That is really big. Absolutely. And we've got quite a few. I think it's time to move to relationships. So even looking at those strengths and assets, I think you could even think of some relationships that would fit within who would you rely on within some of those strengths that you would have. But what would be some relationships that somebody could rely on for daily life and support options? I can give you some examples. Well, parents and family. Was caregiver one? I think is caregiver. Yes, caregiver and siblings. Another one might be coworkers. You know, if you have a coworker within a job you're already doing, might be a good one. Neighbors, you get that one. Job coach and PCA. Nora's really staying on task there with, it's hard to catch up with everybody. Perfect. Do we have teachers in there? Do you think teachers would be a good relationship to have? Paras, teachers, church. So members of your church, definitely. And neighbors, I think we have neighbors. Another one Another one that I think is interesting is like your friends' parents, your friends' families. Sometimes that's a really great resource. You have, yeah, your network. Right, exactly. Support animals. That's a great relationship. Yes, absolutely. I think we could probably move on to the next section. So let's go over to, should we go to technology next? And just a reminder, this is anything that would be technology. It could be as simple as an alarm clock. If anybody uses an alarm clock anymore, I mean, that's not on your phone or something, but kitchen timers for cooking, that's another really good one. So what technology could you use in your daily living to get through your day, or for that employment piece as well? Donna says a phone, absolutely. And it could be a smartphone, not just a phone, but a smartphone might be part of it. A calendar on your phone. Alexa, yeah, absolutely. Online grocery ordering. Oh, I just opened my Alexa. On October 17th, 1995. Alexa, stop. Okay. I think you're getting these, Nora, right? Adaptive toothbrush and eating utensils, most definitely. Isn't it great how all this technology can make somebody so independent, or help them to be more independent than what they imagine they ever could be? A smartwatch, got that one. Let me see. This is another one. Oh, internet job search was what I was just going to say. Is that what you were thinking, Nora? Okay. And online classes is another one for employment. There's so many online classes and trainings that you can do these days. For that daily living piece, you could almost break these two out with employment and daily living very easily. An enlarged gripper for zippers. I need that one many times. Doorbell, I think you're caught up again. Scooter and electric wheelchair, absolutely. Assistive communication devices. Another one I had was online resume builders. So again, to look for employment, what are some of those tools that you can use that you can find that would work with that? I think we mentioned like apps and things for independent living, right? I'm not sure if they're.
Yeah, I think we've filled up the box, but yes, definitely. Yes, I'm glad My Vault is on there because I think there's also tons of really great websites. There's like Career Force, there's that one that's national. But you can look at all these different jobs and they have videos for the jobs. You can see what they're like and what the requirements are. And so there's just even YouTube videos to watch. Like, what is this job? A lot of people do a day in the life of something. And so I think there's so much on the internet that can help with daily life and employment. But we filled the box. This group has so many wonderful ideas.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of good ideas. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to community resources and supporting daily life. So what are some things, and usually the community-based are things that somebody has already maybe has a connection to, and then like Jen did, looking at that future, what are some other, where do they want to go? Are there some other ones? So to get us started, unless somebody has some ideas, just volunteering in general would be one. Service organizations, local gyms, local YMCA, community education classes, definitely. Community, what a great one. Community garden plots. You learn so much from gardening. Support and advocacy groups. Finding community activities. Summertime has lots of extra activities. There's a lot of things out there. Yeah. Special Olympics, one that it's close to my heart. Even colleges and universities, if somebody has a college or university in their neighborhood or their city, that definitely could be something. Parks and recreation departments. Tutors. What a great thought for employment and for daily living, but tutors would be one. Parent teacher associations, kind of one that bike and hiking trails, absolutely. PTA, you know, you have those connections in school. Sometimes you can still go back to some of those connections that you have had through school, and they can still be that resource. Summer reading programs in the library. Technology by scavenger hunts on apps. Oh, that's just a fun one. That would be a lot of fun. Again, churches and places of worship, most definitely. Yeah, and honestly, you know, on this an integrated support star I've done, Costco is on there because there are many people you meet at Costco. There's a lot of resources. So thinking about some of those places you go to on a regular basis, there's definitely community based. You find relationships at places like that, restaurants, shopping, Facebook groups, and other online communities. Absolutely.
Is that okay if I add one thing to this? Leanne, you talked about kind of that community. One thing I've talked to people about is that lack of familiarity. You know, when they're in school buildings, so many of their peers know them, the teachers. Hey, how's it going? You know, and so there's just this feeling of community. And so becoming a regular somewhere, like a coffee shop or a bar or wherever, grocery store. So people can start to see someone around and really get that same kind of feeling of familiarity that they did in school. Cause I think that can really feel like a huge, huge loss for a lot of people.
You just brought one to mind. My daughter-in-law loves karaoke and found a karaoke bar, and it was amazing. I couldn't believe how many people she knew within that bar. Very interesting. We have a few more other public transportation. The drivers, absolutely, and getting to know those regular riders.
Got a couple minutes left here.
Okay, good. We should move on to eligibility then, shouldn't we? So let's go there. So this one again is, what are those things that you're eligible for? Just to start it off, maybe like thinking about work crews and enclaves. I mean, that one's very disability specific. Maybe not. I mean, it could be both. But job coaches and supported employment. So those are all where the eligibility pieces come in within somebody eligible for services. Customized employment, definitely. Special college programs. Somebody is able to go with college programs. Supervised housing. My sheet also has special education and IEPs. Again, kind of transitioning out, but maybe there are still some eligibility pieces to that. A free phone. So the programs that give you the phone, providers, SSI, disability benefits, absolutely. Case management would be one, support coordinator. Rule 79, case management. Mhm. Day rehabilitation services and sheltered workshops are also on here. There are others there too. Well, I think supported employment is on there. Voc rehab services, most definitely. Therapy, yeah, absolutely. Project search, another really great one. PCA services. Scholarships.
So Leanne, one question that I have about this, so for people's understanding, is who is filling this out in the real world? Like what does that look like in the real world?
Well, when someone is looking for that daily life or employment, I mean, you're really working through it and you have your team there. So thinking about families that, you know, if there's a case manager involved, they're definitely going to be able to have those eligibility specific ones. I mean, but in general, I think Meredith, we're talking in general, right?
Mhm.
But you really want the person to really brainstorm this. And as Jen mentioned with their integrated support star, always starting with those strengths and having each person give that person their strengths. And when you can focus it on daily living and employment and say, you know, you are really good at communicating what your interests are, that's always very, very helpful. So again, as many of the tools use, you do want your team there because everybody, they're also part of those resources for you and can help you brainstorm through it.
That's great. And I see Carrie in the chat saying this tool is great to have an inventory about what a person has for support and where there are areas they have less that goals can be created around. Great.
Absolutely. And again, as Jen mentioned, or maybe Nora did, this one also goes back to the trajectory, and you can link all of these tools together to come up with the resources to see where the resources fit within the other tools as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Leanne. Thank you, Nora. We're just about at the hour. Just a couple things that I want to bring everybody's attention to. The first is that the group that planned this event did create a resource page that puts sort of all of these resources in one place, including we will drop the slides into that resource page or a link to the slides in the resource page. So look for that. And I believe Family Voices will host this recording on their website along with the resource page. And we'll send that out to everybody within probably the next week so that you will have that and you can share with others. And then finally, I would like to ask folks to just stick around for a few more minutes and please fill out our post-event survey. This is important in terms of us securing resources in the future to put on events like this. And so I just put a link in the chat to that survey. It should just take a couple of minutes to finish. And maybe, you know, while folks are doing that, if there's any immediate questions that participants have, we could take those before we close. You're quiet because you're all filling out the survey thoughtfully, right? Great. I feel like I should have some music. Does anyone want to sing? No? No. Okay. Well, I'll just I'll just say thank you to our presenters and the leadership team that spent a lot of time putting together this really important, powerful hour of information. And then thank you to all of you for attending. And we hope that you will be able to use this information in your lives and in your work. And we'll share it with others in your network. And so again, you'll be hearing from us within the next week or so with links to all of this. And with that, I will say thank you and have a great afternoon, and ask the leadership folks to please stay on. Thanks, everybody.
Meredith, you're still recording too.
Call.